So we got a lot of political news to talk about this week, obviously, in the aftermath of the midterms. And so I want to just remind you of what I often say, that if you can't pay attention to politics without getting enraged, you shouldn't pay attention to politics. It's just not worth ruining your life over. And one of the reasons people get enraged is because they let themselves get mentally wrapped up in crazy right-wing conspiracy theories. They say, the left supports abortion and homosexuality and transgenderism because they want to destroy our families and keep us from reproducing so they can replace us with illegal immigrants who don't have our traditions of freedom. And, it's crazy stuff. And I think we should all pause a moment and listen to these words of wisdom from Democrat Senator Chuck Schumer. This cut 12.
Now more than ever, we're short of workers. We have a population that is not reproducing it on its own with the same level that it used to. The only way we're going to have a great future in America is if we welcome and embrace immigrants, the dreamers, and all of them, because our ultimate goal is to help the dreamers, but get a path to citizenship for all 11 million or however many undocumented there are here.
Now, I know what you're saying. You're saying, that's what I was trying to tell you. It's all true. It's all true. It actually turns out to all be true. So many of the things that we are accused of saying on the right, that we're called conspiracy theorists, turn out to be true once the press can report them without damaging the Democrats' chances of getting elected. So now that the midterms are over and they did, well, suddenly our corrupt media is reporting all this stuff that they've been keeping secret that we've been saying was true. So here's the New York Times, a former newspaper. They now report this right after the election is over. The FBI had as many as 8 informants inside the far-right Proud Boys in the months surrounding the storming of the Capitol on January 6. Recent court papers indicate, raising questions about how much federal investigators were able to learn from them about the violent mob attack both before and after it took place. The existence of the informants, get this, came to light over the past few days. They don't say how many days because they don't want to point out that they didn't report this before the election. Came to light over the past few days in a flurry of veiled court filings by defense lawyers for 5 members of the Proud Boys who are set to go on trial next month. So the defense says there's exculpatory evidence in these papers that show that there were as many as 8 informants. Now, we don't know whether these informants were FBI employees, but we know that they were informing the FBI. And of course, Christopher Wray, the head of the FBI, says these guys did not in any way incite the Proud Boys to go into the Capitol. Here's cut 5 of Wray under questioning.
Did the FBI have confidential human sources embedded within the January 6th protesters on January 6th of 2021?
Well, Congressman, as I'm sure you can appreciate, I have to be very careful about what I can say about when.
Even now, because that's what you told us 2 years ago.
May I finish? About when we do and do not, and where we have and have not used confidential human sources. But to the extent that there's a suggestion, for example, that the FBI's confidential human sources or FBI employees in some way instigated or orchestrated January 6th, that's categorically false.
Did you have confidential human sources dressed as Trump supporters inside the Capitol on January the 6th prior to the doors being open?
Again, I had to be very careful.
It should be a no. Can you not tell the American people no?
Hey, if you can't believe Christopher Wray, who can you believe? The thing about this is you got to use your imagination. It's possible these weren't FBI employees. Hello, my fellow Trump supporters. But even if they were just informants, these guys are charged with seditious conspiracy. The conspiracy is a plot. In order to plot, you have to discuss things. So of all these people, I don't even know how many Proud Boys there are. 9, 10, 8 of them were FBI informants. So you've got the FBI informants. And if they know that there is a plot, a conspiracy for sedition, aren't they calling the FBI and saying, these guys are plotting, they're plotting to charge into the government? And, poor AOC, she's hiding under her desk. She's afraid for her virtue. This is a terrible, terrible thing. They don't stop them. And when they're plotting, do these FBI informants, who, of course, don't work for the FBI, of course, did they say, yeah, let's do that? At which case, it's entrapment. The whole thing is baloney. But this only comes out after the midterms. This is true, by the way, in this Oath Keepers trial. They had another guy, they had an informant an informant in the Oath Keepers who was not called by the prosecution to bring information. He was called by the defense to bring information, but on the way to the trial, he had a heart attack. The guy was 40. He's 40 years old, but suddenly he had a heart attack. Now, many of you know me as the Lord of the Multiverse, so you would expect me to get a lot more respect than I do. The reason I don't is because I just don't go around bragging about being a Lord. But you should. That's what you should do. I should go around, and the way you do that is you go to established titles. Established titles is your opportunity to earn the title of Lord or Lady and get the respect you deserve. All you need is a 1 square foot plot of land in Scotland. Established Titles is a project based on a historic Scottish custom where landowners are referred to as lairds or lords and ladies in English. In your title pack, you'll be bestowed with at least 1 square foot of dedicated land on a private estate in Edelston, Scotland, plus an official certificate with a crest. I have one. Your certificate features a unique plot number with which you can see the exact location of your land. Titles packs from Established Titles are a fun and unique gift for any occasion, and there are even couple packs that come with adjoining plots of land for the special someone in your life. With your certificate, you could officially add the prefix of Lord or Lady to your credit cards, plane tickets, and even your dating profiles. And get this, Established Titles told me that the first 200 people purchasing a title pack using my exclusive link will receive a plot within a few walking minutes of mine. Established Titles is actually running a massive sale right now. Plus, if you use the code Klavan, you get an additional 10% off. Go to establishedtitles.com/Klavan to get your gifts now and help support the channel. You can't be Lord of the Multiverse, but you can be Lord of a plot of ground in Scotland if you know how to spell Klavan. And by the way, it's Klavan. So I just want to point out one thing. All through the Russian collusion hoax, the FBI had 1 million secret anonymous sources in the FBI. The New York Times had all these sources in the FBI calling them. None of them called with this information before. They couldn't have called all those sources, those wonderful anonymous sources. Maybe they were anonymous, so the New York Times didn't know how to get in touch with them. I call him, but I don't know his name because he was anonymous. So maybe they couldn't find out. But suddenly, after the election, and not only that, here's another one from the Washington Post. Right after the election, the Washington Post reports this. And the Washington Post also has a lot of anonymous sources. Maybe it's just a guy named Anonymous who's constantly calling these people. Federal agents, this is from the Post, where democracy dies in darkness, if they have anything to say about it. Federal agents and prosecutors have come to believe former President Donald Trump's motive for allegedly taking and keeping classified documents was largely his ego and a desire to hold on to the materials as trophies or mementos, according to people familiar with the matter. Now, think back on this. Remember that when they went in and they raided Mar-a-Lago, they said Trump had the nuclear codes. Remember this? They were saying he may have the nuclear codes. He's going to call up with a disguised voice and say, I'm calling in to set off a nuclear war. Remember all this stuff that how can we allow this to happen? He was keeping souvenirs, just like all the other presidents. This was Trump when he announced that he was going to run again, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Here's one of the things he said about that. This is cut 21.
And then they hired somebody, Demchenko, for $200,000 a year to focus on Trump and to get Trump and other things, including the raid of a very beautiful house that sits right here. The raid of Mar-a-Lago, think of it. And I say, why didn't you raid Bush's place? Why didn't you raid Clinton? 32,000 emails. Why didn't you raid Clinton's place? Why didn't you do Obama, who took a lot of things with him? We will dismantle the deep state and restore government by the people.
It's kind of a good argument if, in fact, he was just keeping souvenirs like all of the presidents. They've all done it. They've all walked off with, classified documents and all this stuff. But with Trump, it was the nuclear codes, except now we find out it was like, whatever. It was nothing. And, of course, this Hunter Biden's laptop. Remember how Twitter knocked the New York Post off Twitter for reporting on that. By the way, if you're following Elon Musk's journey on Twitter, everybody is quitting. Like 90% of the staff is quitting because they're so afraid that Elon Musk is going to take away the censorship. There's a report from Jonathan Turley, I believe, that Hillary Clinton or Hillary Clinton associates have induced sponsors to threaten to walk out on Twitter if he doesn't continue censoring. This is how, because they're conspiring, they're so afraid of their conspiracies becoming known that they actually have to threaten Twitter because they do not want this information coming out. That's why they're against free speech, because of this stuff that they're doing. And now we're finding out I mean, this is kind of interesting now that the House has been taken over by a Republican majority. Representative James Comer of the House Oversight Committee says they're going to start looking into that Hunter Biden laptop, which you will remember 50 or 51 former intelligence officers, very high ranking, some of them leaders of the CIA, said, oh no, this is Russian, this laptop thing, this is Russian misinformation. Turns out not so much. It was all extremely, completely accurate. And now James Comer says they are going to start investigating that. It's cut 22.
Committee Republicans have identified over 50 countries the Biden family sought businesses in. On the international side of the Biden family business, the deals were often led by Hunter Biden. And that map there behind Clay shows all the countries where the Bidens had a footprint in international business dealings. The investigation reveals a family that engaged with some of America's most powerful adversaries, planning to sell one of the largest sources of cobalt for electric vehicles in the world to the Chinese, for example. The Bidens flourished and became millionaires by simply offering access to the family. Among the dozens of shell companies the Bidens set up, there were millions of dollars of wire transfers, flights on Air Force Two to conduct personal business, and meetings with heads of state, all while Joe Biden was aware of what was happening.
No wonder they got to shut down Twitter if he saw that. What do they have that? They have that part of Twitter, that department in Twitter called something that says this Orwellian name like trust and safety, which is trust us and we will keep the Democrats safe, I think is what that means. It is now so clear that so many of our conspiracy theories turned out to be simply the literal truth that even Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is admitting that we get everything right. Here she is saying that right-wingers are just right again and again and again. It's cut 3.
The same folks who tell us and told us that COVID's just a flu, that climate change isn't real, that January 6th was nothing but a tourist visit, are now trying to tell us that transgender people are not real.
So she admits it. We get everything right. We got everything we say turns out to be true. You know, to look on the positive side of this, if seeing that there are conspiracy theories that the press refuses to report makes you angry and you're walking around in a rage all the time. And now it turns out that it's all true, that, you know, they're pushing homosexuality and transgenderism and, abortion because they don't want us to reproduce so they can replace us with people who do not have our traditions of freedom, right? We can solve both of these problems at one time, right? Here's what we do. There's an article by Arthur Brooks today. I can't remember where it was. I saw it on RCP. An article by Arthur Brooks. He teaches a happiness class. He used to run AEI, very bright guy. I saw his first speech at AEI. He's a real brilliant guy. He now teaches a class on happiness at Harvard University. And he writes about how happiness has been going down in America at the same time that marriage rates, religion, childbearing, and work have been declining. Those are the things that give life meaning and give you love and give you happiness, and they're all declining with happiness. So here's what you do. Here's how we solve both Chuck Schumer's problem and our problem with anger, right? Find a spouse. Find someone of the opposite sex. Now, that's a little complicated because there's so many sexes. There's lots and lots of genders. There's men, then there's women. Actually, that's it. So that's not so complicated. So find someone of the opposite sex. Go to church, right? Solves that problem. You go to church, get married, solves that problem. If you're the girl in this relationship, because there's only two things you can be, if you happen to be the woman, get pregnant. If you're the guy, get a job and support your wife while she takes care of your children. Now we're reproducing and we have all the things, we can send the illegals home and we have all the things that make us happy. Problem solved. Now we can move on and talk about politics. That was unbelievably great, wasn't it? Yes, it was. So like and subscribe, and also subscribe to the Andrew Klavan Podcast.